because if I speak and they don't like it, I may lose my commissary, I may lose my phone calls, I may lose my ability to write to you because it's for 30 days when they cut you off. So I asked, well, what are you going to say? And her instant response started with, I charge murder. So I said, you don't have to go any further. And I was very thrilled because I realized at that moment they had not broken her spirit. They can threaten her, they can say what they're going to do, but her spirit is still alive, and she was very angry. Well, she did give that speech. And when they suggested she stop, she continued. And when they removed her from the area in which she was speaking, she shouted out, Tiki, which was the name of the woman who had died, are you still faking it? Are you faking it now? Well, of course, all the inmates cheered, and, of course, they told Lynne she had a hearing the following Monday. She had got a chance to call me, and she says the hearing's going to be Monday, and I don't know what they're going to do. And she described what going to a hearing was about. You become handcuffed behind your back, and, you know, she has short arms, and she says it's painful. And then they do a body search before you go into the hearing and a body search when you come out. And she says it is very uncomfortable. So when she was going to the hearing, handcuffed, when she got inside the room, she says it was about a half hour with her hands handcuffed behind her back. She had asked that they remove the handcuffs so she could get her papers and organize them. And they told her, listen, they're not going to sanction her, but she is going to have to speak to the chaplain. So she spoke with the chaplain, and she says, you know, the chaplain started off with, well, Miss Stewart, I'm sure you understand the difference between grieving and a grievance. And so her answer was, of course, but you have to understand in grieving, you first have to speak truth. And she gave him a lesson on language, our wordsmith, straightened out the chaplain, and they sent her back to her room and said, listen, Miss Stewart, we believe you. We're not going to do anything. So she dodged a bullet, but more important than that, she was ready to take the bullet, but she was not ready to be silenced. And this tells me the most important thing of all, her spirit is not broken, and she talks constantly of doing cases, and now they're up to she's up to number 3 in terms of people getting out due to the work that she's doing in the prison. And when there was the third person got notification that they would be leaving, the inmates, the other inmates cheered, and they have a celebration around these momentous occasions. But what has happened is you can imagine how many people get in line now that they know that she's for real. And she says it's overwhelming. She tries to do it all, and she is being swamped, and she feels bad that she cannot do the work that she'd like to do. But it has inspired her. For when she first went in, she had said when this 28 months or when she was first sentenced, she had said when these 28 months are over, I'm just going to pull in my shingle and call it quits. Since she's been in jail, she says there are so many people doing long terms in jail that would not be so if they had a decent lawyer who would take time to look at them and do their cases. So now she has been invigorated. If she gets out, and I say when she gets out, she's going to go to the Supreme Court to fight her original charge from the outside and try to get back in the law field because we certainly do need her out here. And so they have inspired her rather than hurt her. She still needs an operation. She is still ill, and and my daughter Our daughter, the doctor, is working with one of the prison doctors to get her out to go to a facility to get her operation. It will not. We don't know. The prisons don't tell you what they're doing. Our daughter is satisfied that the hospital is a hospital with a reasonable record. We're hoping for the best. They don't tell you if and when she will get an operation, but I'm hoping that we have the appeal, that we win the appeal, that she gets out, and that she can go to a doctor in New York to have the necessary procedures, to be with the people she loves and the people who support her. And I think that would be the greatest medicine of all, to have Lynne Stewart in a New York City hospital where the hospitals would be overflowed with myself and other people wanting to visit her. So this is where we are today, and I'm asking for everyone's participation. I'm asking the radio programs to play this message so that people, everyone, within the voice, within the reach of those who care, will be able to participate. And thank you, thank you, thank you.
Lynne Stewart has spent a lifetime defending those who need defending. And when she's in prison, she continues doing exactly that. She is the same defender of us all. It's important, I think, to put this in a very particular context. When the war of terror was unleashed, when its victims were selected, when the propaganda machine was engendered, when the people of the United States were subject to this submersion in propaganda, it was called engineering consent for wars abroad, engineering consent for repression at home. Just 2 days ago, the diplomatic editor of The Guardian, Borger, published an article called Engineering Consent for an Attack on Iran. And in that article, he pointed out that the head of U.S. intelligence, the top intelligence official, James Clapper, the U.S. Director of National Intelligence, has stated that Iran is planning to carry out an attack inside the United States. And the Guardian headline states this is an engineering of consent. The silencing of Lynne Stewart is about continuing to engineer consent through repression, continuing to engineer consent by framing people for crimes of the government's own doing, continuing to engineer consent so the repression of the 1% over the 99% can continue, so the wars can continue, so all of us will lose our voices as well as our freedom. Lynne is continuing to struggle against that. She is our voice now as she was before, and we have to continue to fight for her.
Ralph, as the summary in the appeal states, when the constitutional right to speak freely on a subject of public importance is taken from Ms. Stewart, it is taken from all of us. Ralph Poynter, please repeat for everyone the important events that are taking place the 28th, culminating in the oral arguments before this horrible 3-judge members of the appellate court that instructed Judge Kotel to give Lynne a virtual life sentence.
Yes, and the 28th at Foley Square, we will gather to let Lynne and the nation hear our voice. We are going to occupy that square that is right beside the courthouse.
Overnight.
Of events. We're going to stay with musicians, drummers, speakers, singers, and let our voice be heard so that there be no mistake on what the people are thinking about what is happening with the government. And I do not call it our government. Our government has been hijacked. So please come out and show your dissent. Please come out and speak your voice with your presence on those days, or one day, whatever day that you can do to support Lynne Stewart and all political prisoners. Thank you.
Again, this has been Taking Aim with
Ralph Schoenman
and Maya Shone, along with
Ralph Poynter,
with an update on the case of Lynne Stewart. We thank all of you who've been in steady contact with Lynne and supporting her in her travails while she is in prison in Texas. Remember, it is all our efforts that will get Lynne out of prison. Keep up the work.